Are you helping? Hi folks, welcome back to the bench. Today we're going to be swapping out a gas key for an AR15 bolt carrier. We're going to be removing one, cleaning the undersurface on the carrier, sealing it, torquing the fasteners, and staking it using the method prescribed in Army TM 9-10005-319-23 and Air Force Manual TO11W3-5-42. We're going to be modifying what their recommendations are slightly. For one, they don't prescribe using a sealant. We're going to be mimicking the way factories will typically seal underneath the carrier using the high temp gasket maker that we have here. We're going to only stake in 2 places per fastener as opposed to 3. I'll get to why I like to do that when we get to that. And we're going to be torquing the fasteners to 56 inch-pounds of torque. I talked to Patriot Ordnance Factory, that is their recommendation, even though the manual only says 35 to 40. But 56 is the new standard, and that's what we're going to be using. It should be said that the gas key is not intended to be removed and reinstalled, neither are the fasteners. So don't start taking this apart just to look underneath. If you take it off, you need to be replacing the fasteners and the gas key with new components. So I don't want to just take this apart and waste it. We're going to be upgrading to the roller cam pin upgrade kit from Patriot Ordnance Factory, POF USA. It's a pretty nice little system that I use mainly in SBRs. It works in other things great too, but I really like it in SBRs that are running kind of hard. To get started with, I guess I'll show you what we're doing. So this is a stock Colt bolt carrier group. Pretty much brand new, I think this one is. And you can see they have some really nice aggressive staking on there, securing their fasteners. Really well done. Now, we are not going to try to mimic that. That's the big mistake a lot of people make, is that they'll see that and try to copy it. And unless you have specialized tooling, you cannot mimic that at home without potentially causing damage. Because if you take a punch and try to come in here sideways and strike this, what you're doing is you're adding a torquing, a side shear essentially to these fasteners. You're trying to lift them up basically by hitting that. And we don't want to do that. So the method we're going to be using is striking downward as is described for field use in the training manual. So even though this looks different, this is proper staking of a gas key fastener. They recommend 3, but we're going to do 2. So to get started, let's go over the parts and tools we're going to be using. On the one we're actually working on here, I have already taken this file and tried to just take down some of that staking to make it a little easier to get these out, because the Colt carriers are notoriously really tight. So actually I'm going to get these out of the way so that we can just start focusing on the one we're actually going to be working on. So it helps to have a file just to go across these real quick and kind of knock those stakings down a little bit. So file can go out of the way. To remove the fasteners, mil spec size is 1/8 inch little hex key. Sometimes on these you can get them out with just a simple driver like this one. Since the Colt ones are so tight, I'm going to be setting that to the side also and using a little impact. We've got, of course, our sealant that we're going to be using, a small paper clip for applying that sealant. We've got a 9/64 hex key for installing the POF fasteners because they're a different size socket cap on them. I've got just some brake cleaner to act as a degreaser once we get this off, to remove the old sealant and any kind of dirt, debris, whatever might be underneath there. And we are going to have a torque wrench for torquing the new fasteners to the 56 inch-pounds that's recommended. You don't want to go over, you don't really want to go much under. 50 to 56 is about where you want to be. For staking, we're going to need this hammer. I'm going to set it to the side for now to get it out of our way. And a punch. If you want one off the shelf, this 3/8 inch Craftsman punch, part number 42841 WF, is a pretty good choice. You can see the profile there. Pretty nice one to use. But I have one that I've been using for, I guess, about 10 years now, that is an old broken punch that I have ground to how I like it to be. So you can see that profile there. I'm just gonna use this one because I'm used to it. So let's get started. We're gonna take our 1/8 inch, make sure I got the right one, 1/8 inch hex bit, and just gonna put it in here and give it a little. That one comes out. It's a little tight on there. It's a really nicely fitted bit, actually. So just have to wiggle that a little. And my filing might have, there we go, it's off. And so that is discarded. That goes in the trash bin because you do not reuse these fasteners. If you do try to reuse them, you run a risk of shearing the head off, and then you're really in for a bad day. Try and get that out. So, second one, a little tighter, but out it comes. And sometimes they do this where, let's see if I can show you. It got stuck on me again. But sometimes they do this, especially on the second one that you take out, where they'll get kind of stuck underneath the staking. And that's fine, that's not a big deal. And since we're not going to be using this bit when installing those, I will wiggle it out later. I think my little pre-filing that I did to knock those down may have tightened them up some. Ah, there it is. It came out. Just takes a little wiggling. But yeah. And so this one and this key are discarded also. Toss that in the trash bin. So we've got a little bit of carbon here, maybe some old sealant that Colt put on there. I'm just going to take a little bit of this brake cleaner, give it a little spritz, and that helps just degrease and knock loose any remaining residue there. And you can see their sealant that they used has squeezed out a little bit on the front end here. That shouldn't be a big deal for us, but I'm going to go ahead and just while we're at it, I'm going to take a little bit of this steel wool and just see if I can take that off kind of easily. If it doesn't come off easy, I'm not going to do anything too crazy. I don't want to remove all the park rising or anything right there because that would have a potential rust. It looks like it's going to be stubborn kind of, so I'm just going to go ahead, degrease again because that steel wool had a little bit of oil on it. And this doesn't have to be completely perfect. You just want to make sure that your new gas key is going to fit nice and flush. So while we're here, you'll see that you have your two holes for your fasteners, threaded holes, and then this is where your gas comes through from the inside, or goes down into the inside of the carrier, comes in from the top through the hole in the gas key. So you can see how those will mate up. And if I set it on there and line the screws up, I just want to see that it's all going to sit together nice, that we don't have any side-to-side play or anything, and that junk that's left over from the Colt part is not going to interfere. And it doesn't look like it is, so we're just going to leave that alone and not waste a bunch of time and risk damage to the finish trying to remove that little bit of squeeze out of sealant that they left for us. Okay, so we're going to take our high temp gasket maker here. This is rated for 750 degrees. That should be fine for us. I'm not going to follow the directions exactly because they recommend putting this on and then leaving it for, I think they said, an hour. And you don't want to do that, or at least I don't want to do that, because of a concern of basically changing the dimension here. You want this to sit nice and flat. I'm just going to take a index card here, just for sake of not making a huge mess. I'm going to squeeze some of this out. Yeah, looks like I'm about to start painting or something. Welcome to Bob Ross, huh? I'm just going to take some of this and I'm going to put it around the gas orifice here in the carrier. And I'm not going to use a ton. We don't want to have a bunch of bleed over or anything. Some of it is going to squeeze out. That's okay. We'll wipe it up with this rag when we get to that point. And I mentioned while we're doing this that the training manual for field use doesn't actually mention anything about applying a sealant as far as I can see. It is recommended that when you finish doing this, that you fire, I think it said 3 to 8 rounds of ball ammo to create the seal. We're just helping that along by doing this some, because ultimately you will get carbon buildup in these surfaces. I went a little too much there. You will get carbon buildup in these surfaces that will seal it off anyway. This is just going to make sure that that carbon deposit develops sooner rather than later. So there we go. Not a ton. You could even use a little bit less than that, but that'll be just okay for what we're doing. I'm going to set this aside so we don't make a mess of the place. Now, when you put your gas key on, I'm going to go ahead and degrease it real quick, just to try to get everything nice and clean so we have a good seal there. You want to try to put this down kind of straight on to where you're not squeezing that sealant out in a funny direction. So as soon as I finish wiping this off, we will just look at it. We're going to line up the two little counter bores here with those threaded holes. And just set it down on. I'm a little bit off, adjust it some. You just don't want to get too crazy with it. A little bit of movement's fine. going to take my 9/16 here, take this, I'm just going to stick him in there and begin very carefully going in. And the threads are lining up perfectly. And we're not going to do anything more than just barely getting it to seat. We're not tightening it a ton. Just barely getting it to seat. And so what I'm going to do now, my preference anyway, is I'm going to take this thing down to about a little less than 20 inch-pounds. Spin, spin, spin. Okay, we're about 20 inch-pounds there. I'm going to go ahead and click the 20, click the 20, click the 20, click the 20. I'm going to take it up to about the 40 inch-pound mark, thereabouts. Doesn't have to be exact on this portion of it. 40, 40, 40, 40. And I'm going to take it up to the 56 mark, which for mine isn't really defined, but I'm going to just put it a little bit over 55. 50 to 56 is kind of where you want to be. So I'm just slightly above the 55 indicator on here. We'll go ahead and click, 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 click. I just like doing that 3 times each, cycling back and forth, just to make sure that it's sitting nice and even. Take my rag here. Actually, I'm going to use this old rag because I don't want to get that relatively new rag all cruddy with this sealant. I'm just going to wipe off that sealant that's squeezed out. A little bit messy, but just give it a rub. And if you have a little bit of excess, you can kind of peel it off or just use a toothpick or something to dig away at it later. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's fairly easy to remove at any point in time, really. Wiping that away. Wiping it away. Hope I'm not shaking the camera doing that. Trying not to. I know I sometimes throw you guys around a little bit. While I'm doing this though, let's go ahead and thank you guys, because we just hit over 200 subscribers, I think yesterday. So man, that's pretty cool. You guys have been great. So all you guys that watch the videos, subscribe, and especially the folks that leave comments. I mean, it's really great to hear back from you. So thank you guys for doing all that. For only 90 days in, actually a little less than 90 days on the channel. And that's really cool to already be taken off that way. So we're nice and snug there. So actually what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to take my little mat here and I'm going to move it out of the way because I want a good solid surface for striking our staking down. And so some folks might say that, oh no, you need whatever special tool. You really don't. I mean, this carrier, where's this carrier? I mean, this one I've been running in my little SBR for, I mean, quite a while now, and it has held up just fine. I mean, I haven't had this in the entire time, but it's got at least I don't know, 1,500 or a couple thousand rounds through it since I put this one on. And I mean, if it was going to come loose, it would have come loose. It's been really just fantastic. So, set him off back. Now, I only like to do 2 stakings on each fastener. And the reason for that is if you do these 120 degrees apart, you always end up with one of them that is really kind of too close to the edge here, and you risk deforming it outward. So I don't want to do that. The way I like to do it is just on this side here, coming in just a little ways off, and then striking down there, coming in opposite of it, 180 degrees, striking, and just doing that in kind of an alternating pattern. If you wanted to do the 2 in the middle on the same side, and then I mean, you could do whatever you want. I don't even remember what I did on this other one. Yeah, so I did those in here on the same side, did these that way. It doesn't really make any difference, just however you'd like to. So I'm gonna go ahead and put one here. And it's going to be hard for me to show you exactly where I'm placing it, but it's, I don't know if I can, what I can use to do a demonstration of how far it is off. I guess on the center of it, it's, what is this, one 23? That's probably about right. I'm probably somewhere about 25 thousandths off from the edge of the little hole there for the fastener. So let's go ahead, line that up. I like to give it just a light strike first to make sure that I'm in the spot that I want to be. Give it a little bit more of a strike. Looking pretty good. Come in on the opposite side of it here. Just want it to shake on me a little bit. Looking pretty good. Go ahead and give it one more. I'm going to go back to the other side and hit it one more time just to make it nice and even. You don't have to do it all in one strike. I mean, you can start out kind of easy and then just do it as you see fit. And what we're just trying to do is get some of that metal deformed, over the screw cap there a little bit. And it doesn't take too terribly much because these have reeded edges to them on these POF fasteners. A lot of them do these days. A little kind of knurling. And they grab pretty good. Right there. Looking nice. Went a little further on that one than I intended to, but it's still deforming the steel over into the screw. So, yeah. And you can see, even though I messed up a little bit, it's still pressing in on the screw, so that's perfect. So even if you go a little further away, that's just fine. We're going to go opposite of it. Pretty good. Nice. Back on this one a little bit, just because yeah, there we are, working it in that way a little bit. So there you have it. And that should be good for many, many years, lots of use. I'm gonna go ahead and just look down the bore here and make sure that I don't have any sealant or anything coming through, and we don't. We have a little bit of bleed out on the front, but just like Colt left it, we're gonna more or less leave that too. I could take some napkin or something and try to wipe that out. You can do a little bit of it. Some of you guys might want to see that being taken out of there. And just run underneath here and kind of pull it out to the side like so. Wipe away what comes out. And see, that made it quite a bit better. There's still some there. It's hard to get down that little crevice, but it doesn't hurt anything, and it's just part of the process. So there you have it, folks. A staked gas key using simple tools that you probably have at home. Not a whole lot of complexity to it. Really easy. So if you enjoyed this content, if it helps you, go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And thanks for watching.